Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where, as always, we learn from the misfortunes of others. If you're enjoying this live legal educational content, please remember to subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and I appreciate all of yours continuing support. We are really growing very nicely on this channel, up to 37.6 thousand people, so that is really, really encouraging, and I would want to just take the time to say thank you to every one of you. Where is my other feed coming from? I have it open somewhere. There it is. Great. This is what happens when you have technology. You have too many things open in too many places. But thank you to 37.6 thousand of you who are here. That's wonderful growth for the channel. That's a growth of about 10,000 more or less in the last whatever. It's been a long couple days. It's hard to keep track. I had a nap today. It was a pretty serious nap because I was so tired. Anyways, let's talk about what happened today and what didn't happen today. So we are on day 3 of the jury deliberations. I thought the jury deliberations would last a day and a half, which I was wrong. And I thought that one of two things was going to happen by the end of the day. Today, that we would either get a verdict or we get a hung jury. And neither of those things occurred. How fun. So we are continuing into day 4. And now we get to do open book time because the judge, when he's dismissing the jury today, asked, do you have any questions? And one of the jurors, who I think is the foreperson, asked if they can take the jury instructions home. To which the judge said, sure. Now, I have to just sort of smile in amusement at this because apparently staring at these instructions for 8 hours a day for the last 3 days isn't enough time for these people, and they want to go look at them some more at home. Now, of course, they're not supposed to look up anything external, right? They're not supposed to look at any material. But you know what's happening right now? Dictionary time. Yes, at a bare minimum, it's dictionary time. And we're going to look up dictionaries and we're going to find definitions that meet our definition of the word, right? So it looks like we have one or two strong holdouts, and one of those holdouts looks like it is the foreperson. So that's super fun and interesting. And so now we're going to go through the words one at a time, and we're going to argue about what they mean. Hey, jury, you can't do that. That's what lawyers do. Don't take our gig, man. Don't start debating over the meaning of individual words and looking for dictionaries that favor your interpretation, man. That's our job. Only we can do that. But the jury feels like they want to do that at home too. So someone somewhere is consulting all the dictionaries to find definitions of words that they want, so they continue to persuade the rest of the jury that the words mean what they want them to mean. Again, that's my job. And that between that and the video footage shows or does not show what they want to show or does not want it to show, as the case may be. So that's where we are. We have a runaway jury being hijacked by probably the jury foreperson, and we went home early probably because everyone's tired of listening to them. So I think tomorrow we'd be looking at a hung jury, but then again, I said that today. So at this point, who the hell knows? But I would think at some point tomorrow, someone's got to raise the point, because the lawyers can raise the point. Maybe we have a hung jury, and you can have a hearing on that. And it's like, well, we got nothing better to do with our time, apparently, because we're not going to re-raise any of the other motions that are pending and do other motion practice. So why doesn't maybe one of the defense lawyers will, tomorrow say, hey, maybe we need to have a hearing on whether or not we have a hung jury or not. And, all that good stuff. So will that happen tomorrow? Will the jury return a verdict? Will they say they're hung? Will the judge say they're hung? Will the lawyers argue they're hung? I don't know, but we're on day 4 of I lose my sanity. Because I've been doing some very long streams between Nate and my own and late night hours and date with Bay and all the other things. I have had some late nights, and I was beginning to lose it a little bit today. So it's like, who will last longer at this point? That's just the race at this point. So I don't know why the jury is such a glutton for punishment, but that's where we are. that's where we are, and it's an interesting thing to behold for sure. $5 Canadian. Emily's assessments about the ADA's chances for censure were very small with sobering. Emily is correct. There was a study done a couple of years ago where even in cases where there was prosecutorial misconduct that led to charges being dropped or sentences being lessened, only 2% of the time were prosecutors sanctioned by the bar. So prosecutors getting sanctioned is very, very low, lower than it is even for other attorneys. So, between the absolute immunity prosecutors enjoy, which actually doesn't technically apply to the ethics issues, but due to that and due to other things, the odds of them getting sanctioned is pretty low. I would have to agree. $5 from Gerald Armstrong. The jurors think this is a game. I would take this seriously. This is a man's life at risk. I don't know whether they think it's a game or not, but, and someone gave me $2, whose name I can't quite see, that said, "Hello, Darl, just woke up." Well, hello to you too. All those good things. So let's talk about some other things. Oh, and also, Stephanie points out that, there's this idea of the judge wants to wait to decide on whether or not there should be a mistrial before the verdict is returned, which is also kind of odd, because the jury coming back or not shouldn't impact whether or not there's a mistrial, right? If there was a mistrial because evidence was presented that wasn't, or the prosecutor violating the Fifth Amendment rights, or not turning over the high quality drone footage, or other reasons, right? If a mistrial has occurred, it's occurred. It's a little bit like, I don't know what the analogy is. It's a little bit like, it's like a Schrodinger's cat thing. Like, the cat is alive or dead or not, but we're only going to look once the jury comes back. But the jury coming back doesn't change the result. So it's not like it becomes alive or dead in this strange analogy by the jury coming back. So the fact that the judge doesn't want to put a ruling on this now about the mistrial is weird. I think the judge continues to want, for jurisprudential reasons, and I think also because the defense sucks and really hasn't pushed the ball hard enough at all. I mean, the defense has technically asked, but that isn't the same thing as like what the prosecutor's done, where they just ask constantly and relentlessly until the judge gives up, right? That's what the prosecution does. So I think this continues to be the defense sucking, right? So the defense is just kind of asking as a formality. They don't really mean it, because they're not, continuing to come after him all the time. And we were also pointing out earlier that even Lionel Hutz at times was closer than the defense lawyers were. That's how bad these defense lawyers are. Like, Lionel Hutz may not have known what the thing was called, but he knew that he should be asking for something. So one of the examples was when Lionel Hutz said, "Can I have a bad court thingy?" And the judge said, "You mean a mistrial?" And he says, "Yeah." Right? So he didn't know the word mistrial, but he understood the concept. He understood the concept. Can I have a bad court thingy? Right? So in some ways, Lionel Hutz was better than the defense, because the defense isn't standing up and saying things like, "I don't think they should be allowed to ask that question, but I forget what it's called when I don't want them to ask the question." And then the judge could say, "You mean an objection?" "Yes, objection. That's the one I wanted." Right? They don't even seem to understand the concept. That's how bad it is. Lionel Hutz, attorney at law, may not know the words, but he at least understands the concepts he's supposed to be asking somewhere along the way. So that's how bad it is. It's hilarious. Oh, Lord. $20 from Dobie XXL. Appreciate the commentary. How Kyle end up with these attorneys? He deserves better. The consistent rumor is that this is being driven by the head of security for Kyle, because Kyle hired his own security, which, why not? Because of obvious reasons. And the rumor is that the head of security guy, for some reason, has jacked the show. So I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that's what I got to offer you. And then that's when Lionel Hutz says, "That's why you're the judge, I'm the law talking guy." And the judge says, you mean attorney? He says, right. Again, he may not understand all the words, like attorney or like mistrial, but he has the concepts down. Lionel Hutz, in some ways, is a better attorney. This is great. So yeah, we're on our continuing watch of whatever this is going to be. I think that at this point we're definitely heading towards a mistrial. I think that's the only reasonable outcome. I don't really. I mean, either that or someone talks someone to death. I think we are not doing a not guilty verdict. Maybe there will be a not guilty verdict on some of the counts. But I think realistically at this point, you're looking for a mistrial across the board. I think that's by far and away the most outcome. And then the judge only has to decide at that point whether or not they want a do-over or not. So the mistrial itself wouldn't be a basis to have it with prejudice. But the judge could, dismiss the jury, declare a mistrial, and then hold it over for a couple weeks or something. And then, quietly, in a couple weeks or something, and quietly in a couple weeks issue his decision on the relief. Like, it's like, I'll keep the case open for, further issues like on the mistrial motions. Wait a couple weeks until, everyone's quieted down, and then just quietly issue whatever judgments of like mistrial with prejudice or judgment as a matter of law or any of those things. So maybe that's what he's waiting for. I don't know. Word is it's a 6-6 split. Really? Has it gotten that bad? It's gotten that bad? It's a 6-6 split, so we went from 2-10 to 6-6? Jesus Lord. Is that how bad it is? I mean, it wouldn't be amazing because, like, on day 1 we heard 2, and then on day 2 we heard 4. So on day 3 it's 6? Sure. I guess that makes sense. But yeah, Richards thinks it's 6-6. Well, I don't trust his opinion. I don't trust his opinion because I don't trust him about anything. I don't trust him about anything. The 6-6 split rumor came from Newsmax. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna press X to doubt on that one. All right, so let's talk about other subjects. Let's talk about QAnon Shaman guy. Oh, yeah. Stephanie reminds me. Thanks, Stephanie. This is why you're here, to remind me of things, because my brain isn't working today. Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie reminds me that MSNBC got yeeted from the trial. So this was a thing that happened today that was pretty notable. The MSNBC had a reporter, and I'm not 100% sure exactly what we mean by reporter here, because the details are a little vague to me because of the mental haze at this point. So I'm not sure if this is a freelance guy or if it's an employee or exactly, but I'm not sure exactly what the relationship is there. But anywho, this guy was pulled over for a traffic ticket yesterday. And he was pulled over for a traffic ticket, I think, failing to obey a traffic signal. In other words, he went through a red light. And so he's pulled over basically for going through a red light, and the cop, as they're doing their, stop, asks them questions, as cops do. And he says, oh, I'm a reporter, and blah, blah. It's like, what were you doing? It's like, oh, I'm following the jury bus. Oh, okay, how interesting, right? So this MSNBC reporter guy is following the jury bus home. And he says, apparently, according to the cops, he said at the time that he had gotten permission / request / whatever from his producer, and he gave a name of this person, to follow the jury. Now, it was, MSNBC put out a statement that it wasn't for the purpose of taking photographs of the jury. But apparently, the speculation was it was for the purpose of trying to set up post verdict interviews. So this guy really wants to have that exclusive, man. So he's following the jury bus with the hope of getting them so that he can set up interviews in the middle of their deliberations. Wow. So that's the thing that happened. So MSNBC put out a statement about the whole thing, and yeah, the court yeeted MSNBC. They're not allowing MSNBC in the courtroom anymore, so they're not allowed in the building. So that's a thing that's happening. So yeah, it was a producer. Yeah, so it was the details are a little vague. So maybe it wasn't a reporter. Maybe it's a producer, because that would make sense if it's for the purposes of setting up an interview, right? So it's a producer trying to do the legwork to set up an interview for the future. So maybe it was a producer, not a reporter. Doesn't really matter on the details that much. But it was someone affiliated with MSNBC in some way that had some sort of authorization / instruction / command to try to set this up. And yeah, that's not a problem in any way. Wow. Okay. So let's talk about QAnon stupidity. So, as many of you may have noted, I, on my channel, have done 50-something episodes of Capitol Riot series. I stopped doing them largely because they became a little one-noted, and they became kind of the same. And I figured after 58, we kind of got the point. But I did 54, 58, or 50-something of these things, where and a lot of them were very, very interesting. There were a lot of great ones in there. There was the one with the guy who didn't make it until the next day. He didn't make it till the 7th because he had a flat tire, but he had a rifle and a gun in his trailer, and he had threatened to shoot, I think, Pelosi and stuff to his uncle, and the FBI came and knocked on his hotel door, and he said, "Hello, FBI friends, please come in. Let me show you my phone." Oh, you want to see my phone? Because you're concerned about things I said to my uncle? Oh, okay. Let me help you out. Let me pull up the phone for you, and let me show you the exact tweets or the exact messages I sent that you're concerned about. Here are the exact messages you are concerned about. Let me show them to you. Oh, you want to look in my trailer? Okay, no problem. Yeah, you can look in my trailer. Oh, I have guns in there. Yeah, I know I'm not supposed to have them in DC, but they're in the trailer. You can look around if you want. Do you have any other questions? So that was good. We had guy with podium guy. We had guy with the unstrung longbow. The unstrung longbow, which apparently is a sign for peace, who actually might have a valid defense case. We had Major Christopher Warner Grillis, which is still my tagged video on my channel. Marine Corps Major 40, working out of Quantico, active duty Marines, who decides he wants to be part of the fun that day. We got the DEA agent wearing his badge and his gun and showing people in photos his badge and his gun from California. You know, who went to the Capitol riots. So many fun stories, and it's all just the same thing. People are posting themselves, they're giving media interviews, they're putting on their Facebook, they're putting on their Twitters. It's all the things, and it's all the stupid. If you're interested in this, as I mentioned, an entire series. It's a 58-ish playlist. Just play a couple and get a nice flavor for it. So, but what we have today for you is QAnon Shaman Guy. QAnon Shaman Guy who protested the food in the prison because the food didn't meet his dietary requirements. You know, he's into that holistic, organic, vegetarian life. And so he was upset about the food at the prison. So QAnon Shaman Guy got 40-something months in jail. I think it was just short of 4 years. I think it was 44 months. So it's just short of 4 years in prison for the various things of the trespassing and the civil disorder and, you know, the various things that we've covered on our channel. It's like, he got 4 years. Partially because they want to make a bit of an example of him. But, you know, he did the bad things. So, yeah. No, you know, not a major surprise. So, yeah, he got 4 years in prison. So, thank you for all the lulz, QAnon Shaman Guy. You are a meme that will live forever in our hearts. The 4 years that he got, Stephanie says it should have been more for crimes against fashion. I don't know, ma'am. I don't know. I feel like QAnon Shaman guy might be ahead of the curve on the fashion issues. Maybe he's someone to learn from. Maybe I should start looking more like him. But yeah, QAnon Shaman did nothing more than misdemeanor trespass. Well, the indictment and the court would disagree with you. So you don't get 4 years for a misdemeanor trespass. So, no, but thank you for playing. I could look it up and tell you exactly what he got, but why don't you do your own homework? His indictment is available online. You can go pull it up yourself and see exactly what he was charged with. And I'm sure with a little bit of homework, you can pull up exactly what his convictions were. It's on the public docket. It's not a secret. He wasn't only doing the misdemeanor trespass. There were other crimes. It was noted. It was adjudicated. You can go look it up. So, go do your own homework on that one. And, so it'll be all good stuff. All right, what's next? What's next, Stephanie? What's up next on our list? Wizard of Oz. You're gonna have to help me out a little bit more. Are we going back on the Wizard of Oz thing? Are we going back to the Rittenhouse trial? Or are we talking about something else? Because I've lost the plot. Salt's in the Wizard of Oz. Okay, so we're talking about the Katie Joy lawsuit, which I haven't looked into at all. Okay, so now I have to pull up the Katie Joy lawsuit and figure out. So Katie Joy Paulson, as many of you know, is without a crystal ball and is being sued again because it's always being sued. There's just always the lawsuits. And now I have to go pull up her lawsuit and see what she's being charged with, or charged with is probably the wrong phrase because it's civil. But let's see if I can figure out what am I trying to do right now? Let's see if I can figure out what's going on there. So let me find the docket for her case. So give me a second, please. Oh, is Twitter? Okay, hold on. Let me look at... okay, it is Twitter. All right, fine. So let me look at his Twitter. Saltz's Twitter. Okay. Hold on. Michael Saltz, who I've met in person, incidentally. Nice guy. I don't think I've ever told that story, but I met him personally in a town that's near me. That's real descriptive. That's great. Let's take a look and see what's on his page. He and KJ figured out it was really Nat that was behind all the threats. That I believe. That I totally believe. Michael says, okay, so Michael Salt said, thank you, Iris. The FBI informed us they believe Nat is at the center of all the hacking and threats. She received help from at least 2 others that we know about. Nat has admitted all this to Irish. More will come out eventually in court filings. And then someone responded to Michael Salt saying, the community told you this for almost a year that she was behind this. Why didn't you listen before? You kept publicly announcing her innocence while people told you over and over she's behind this. And then Mike Saltz says what is absolutely true. No, what we said was that we had no evidence of it at the time. We said that the evidence we had then indicated Nat was a victim. So, like, yeah, we didn't publicly announce her innocence, and we weren't ignoring you. We just didn't have the evidence, and we only know what we can only ultimately prove. So he says, yeah, we now have the evidence. We also know that she had accomplishments in harassment. The investigation behind the scenes was extensive. Maybe I'll get Michael Saltz on and see if he wants to comment about that. Probably not publicly with an ongoing lawsuit, but I'll reach out to him and see if he has any interest in appearing on the channel and talking about any of this, or the degree to which he does. So I'll reach out to him and see if he has any interest in talking about that. San Antonio, by the way, was the name of the town I was looking for when I couldn't figure it out for some reason. All right, so what else is next? Let me take a look at the Discord while Stephanie is feeding me other topics. Let me take a look at the bot. The death penalty case. Oh yes, okay. So there was a case today that was supposed to end in an execution and didn't, because it was commuted at the last minute, basically, by the governor. So let me pull up this. Oh yeah, Julius Jones. Julius Jones is the guy, and he was commuted. His sentence was commuted, so it was changed from death to life without parole by Governor Kevin Stitt, S-T-I-T-T. And this was Oklahoma. So Jones, who was 41, so he's only a year older than me, he was on death row after being found guilty of the fatal shooting of a businessman, Paul Howell, during a carjacking in 1999. He has preserved his innocence the entire time, but Jones was slated for execution today at 4 p.m. But earlier today, that was commuted by the governor. The state's parole board had recommended the commutation by a vote of 3-1. So different states do. So the difference between a pardon and a commutation or commuted is a pardon absolves you completely of the crime. So a pardon's like it never happened. So a pardon just wipes off the books completely. A commutation lowers your sentence. So you're still you might not necessarily be as guilty because it's technically possible to commute you to a lower to a lower charge, or it might be, at least, depending on your jurisdiction. But in this case, yeah, the sentence was commuted. So it was changed by the governor, unilateral act, from the death penalty to life imprisonment without parole. So the board in this state, the way that they do this is by a board reviewing it and then the governor approving it. Different states do this different ways. You might be familiar with the federal system. In the federal system, it's the president's call. It's a unilateral power of the president. So if you're talking about a federal crime for pardon, it's the unilateral power of the president. He doesn't have to ask or get approved by anybody. Different states do this differently. Some states, it's the unilateral power of the governor. Some states, it has to be reviewed by a board and then approved by the governor. Some states, there's a board with the governor that's part of the board, and other different combinations. So it's not necessarily the situation that the governor can just issue a pardon. And I don't know whether or not that's true in Oklahoma or not. Like, if the board had recommended against it, could he still have commuted? I honestly don't know, because I don't know Oklahoma law that well. But in any case, they voted 3-1 to recommend it, and the state's governor decided to commute it today. This also attracted a lot of national attention. This received a lot of interest and requests from people in social media, and also some big name people. I believe Kim Kardashian was behind this effort, at least in part, for this commutation. And there were a lot of other big name people that had come forward. Yeah, it drew the attention of some NBA stars, Russell Westbrook, Blake Griffin, Trae Young. And apparently it drew widespread attention after it was profiled in a 3-episode documentary that aired on ABC called The Last Defense. So, Dallas Cowboy quarterback Dak Prescott was thankful for it, and a whole bunch of other people. So there are a whole bunch of people behind this that thought this was a good thing and got a lot of social media response, and as a result, His sentence has been changed from death to life imprisonment. Now, I don't imagine really that there's going to be any change in this in the future. I mean, he's already been through the appellate system numerous times. So, the only reason that we're at the governor stage is because he exhausted every legal appeal. So I don't imagine for a second that, there's going to be any further legal avenues to appeal his sentence or appeal his conviction. So I would imagine, short of him being pardoned by some future governor, that he will spend the rest of his life in prison. So one can debate how much of a victory that is. It's also notable that the Attorney General of Oklahoma came out with a public statement and said, while they understand that the governor has the power and they think that he did what he thought was right, that ultimately the Attorney General disagrees with it because it's a separately elected office in Oklahoma. So that's all the things that happened today in that Oklahoma case. So you can have your own opinion about the whole thing. Personally, on a strictly personal level, I'm not 100% sure which is better, to be honest, between death and life without parole. I mean, the end result of both is you die in prison. So I guess one can debate, like, is there value in knowing that day after day after day you will have basically the exact same day forever, and that there's basically no hope, and you will wake up and you'll have your mandatory breakfast and your mandatory roll call and your mandatory lunch and your mandatory everything, and you'll have to just sit quietly and wait for death to just come via the Grim Reaper. Is that a better fate than the death penalty? I'm not sure. I mean, you guys can obviously have a discussion amongst yourselves. I'm not saying that it's obvious which one is better. Maybe you think it's inherently obvious. Maybe you think it's very obvious which one is better. But I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if I had the choice between the two. If my only two choices were the death penalty and life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure which I'd pick. I don't think it's inherently obvious. But that's me. I could be wrong. Let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery. So Ahmaud Arbery case goes on. This is the case of the young black man who was running through a neighborhood outside of Atlanta, and a bunch of people, white guys in pickup trucks, literally, chased him down and blockaded a street with shotguns and pistols, and then shot Ahmaud as he was coming at their direction. So this has been interesting. I was able to watch the cross-examination of one of the defendants on the stand today, because the defense apparently decided to take the stand, why? It's a questionable decision even in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, where the facts are very, very favorable for Kyle. You saw how us attorneys kind of were like, I don't know. That was in a situation where the facts were very, very favorable for Kyle, and we're still worried about it. In the McMichaels case, who were the people charged with shooting Ahmaud, the facts are horrible, and the prosecution came prepared. They gave him a copy of their police statement and just basically walked them through every contradiction and things they did say and things they didn't say, and basically he condemned himself orally on the stand at least a half dozen times over. He admitted that they didn't know what he was. They didn't have any belief. They didn't have the probable cause necessary to arrest. They had at best a suspicion. At best they had a suspicion, which is not a probable cause. And so, listening to this testimony today and listening to the state just eviscerate him, it seems clear to me, guilty. It seems to me the right decision based on the law. I've done many videos on the Ahmaud Arbery incident. It looks like straight up murder under the relevant law. They weren't trying to conduct a citizen's arrest. They said that to the police. They weren't trying to conduct a citizen's arrest. My personal favorite today on the cross-examination was when he asked one of the McMichaels, because the McMichaels on the stand said, "Oh, he's trying to reach for the gun," and that's why I shot him, right? I was trying to reach for the gun, and when I shot him. And the prosecution basically said, well, that's really interesting. Do you remember what you told the police? Because the police asked you this explicit question. They asked you explicitly. They asked you explicitly, was Ahmaud trying to reach for the gun? And you know what you said? So, you know, you turn to the right page, and what it says is, oh yeah, I said, I'm not sure, but I want to say that he was. So you weren't sure in the immediate aftermath of whether or not he was reaching for your gun, which, you know, one would think that you'd have a pretty decent idea about. Oh, yeah. Well, did he reach for your gun? I don't know, but I want to say yes. I bet you do. But, you know, 2 hours after the incident, you can't say, yeah, he was definitely reaching for my gun. I was in fear for my life. None of those words. None of those words. So maybe it's just an excuse after the fact. Maybe it's just an excuse after the fact. So all that stuff, man, it's really weird. So I think the McMichaels are going down in flames. The only one I'm less sure about is the one who the McMichaels are going down in flames. The only one I'm not sure about is the one that was in the truck that was behind them, that caught the thing on video. I'm not sure about his liability but you know, it's a little bit vaguer. It's a little bit vaguer, but they've been trying to show that he acted in concert. You know, that it was part of a common plan. So that, you know, they were working together to funnel him into a current place. So basically he becomes a murderer directly. He becomes a murderer, right? If you accept the premise that the guy that was behind him was purposefully trying to funnel Ahmaud towards the McMichaels, like he was purposely trying to get that, he's trying to push them towards the danger, right? That's a minimum reckless. That's minimum reckless homicide. And so you're there. You're there. It's a little bit less obvious than the McMichaels with the guns in the middle of the street. But the prosecution is basically seems to be going for this idea of they were trying to purposefully push him, cornered him into this, and they created that danger. So all that good stuff. That's what's happening in the Ahmaud trial. So I think the McMichaels are going down for sure. And whatever guy number 3, is that Roddy Bryant? Whatever it is. Oh, Mike Matthew passed the baby bar. Hey, everyone, congratulations to Matthew. Congratulations to Matthew for passing the baby bar. That's a big deal for Matthew. Let me explain that. And because, you know, he's in California. And California has its students, when they're in law school, after their first year, take an exam, all right? And it's colloquially known as the baby bar. I don't know if it's actually called that or whatever, but it's some sort of like bar-ish exam that's offered by the bar examiners in California to make sure that you're like basically competent or minimally competent or have at least some vague hope of maybe becoming a lawyer someday. Right? So this is a thing that's offered, and Matt passed that baby bar today. So that means that Matt is a barely coherent, minimally competent law student. I kid, Matt. I congratulate you. That is a nice step in your career. Matt has been a huge supporter of the channel for a long time. He helps me with editing work. He helps me behind the scenes. He's been a supporter even sometimes as he harasses me and I make myself question why he's my friend. But congratulations, Matt. That's really awesome. You deserve it. All right, so let's see what's going on. You passed last October? Matt, I don't want to be disrespectful, but maybe I missed it, but I thought there was a different outcome before. So maybe I missed it, or maybe I forgot, or maybe I'm tired. Either way, I'm going to congratulate you again. So sorry if I missed that. Sorry if it was a year ago and I missed it, but whatever. Well, congrats anyway. Yeah. All right, where was I? Okay, fine. I take back everything I said then. All right, so let's talk about this South Carolina attorney, Richard Murdaugh, filed a motion to dismiss a lawsuit from the family of his late housekeeper, Gloria Satterfeld, who apparently had stolen millions of dollars from insurance settlements. Or he had stolen millions of dollars. So this is basically kind of a Girardi situation with the attorney stealing lots and lots of money. So on Wednesday afternoon, Murdaugh filed this motion to dismiss the proceedings in regards to this because he says that he's already paid settlements, and so there's actually no money outstanding, that he's already come in full. But yeah, this has been a nice little thing down in South Carolina, my former home, where this guy who's a prominent attorney in South Carolina is being charged with embezzlement and cheating his clients and all the rest of it. So that's an interesting little note from my former home, my former place. So really good stuff there. All right, request in the chat for ATF. Okay, so what did the ATF do? Judge denies rare breed injunction against rare breeds. Judge denied rare breeds, that's the name of the company. Rare breeds injunction against ATF over gun trigger. A district judge has denied rare breeds triggers request for an injunction against the ATF. Sent a cease and desist letter to the company ordering them to stop selling a particular kind of trigger. According to the ATF, this converts a semi-automatic into a machine gun, which, by law, if it can do that, then the ATF considers it as a machine gun. You can't sell parts that convert it. So they were saying it does that. The company argued that the ATF was seizing triggers from the companies and that they would get chargebacks that would lead to financial ruin. The judge rejected the claims because, it's conclusory, and also because it's not things. So let's take a look at this trigger. Let me see if I can share this trigger with you on screen, and we can see what the hell this thing is that we're talking about. I don't know how helpful this is going to be, but we're going to try. All right, let's see. So let's see if this does anything. This is probably going to be really bad audio, but I can't be bothered to fix it. All right, let me put in my earpiece. Let's take a look at this thing and see what it is. Damn, that's loud.
Although there are many different types of firearms, each type has a specific cycle of operation. All semi-automatic firearms have 8 steps that occur during the cycle of operation. Those steps are firing, unlocking, extracting, ejecting, cocking, feeding, chambering, and locking. Now we're going to show you a simple animation comparing the cycle of operation using a mil-spec trigger and our FRT. Okay, I'm going to start with a standard mil-spec trigger. With the bolt locked, round in the chamber, and safety off, the cycle of operation begins as the shooter squeezes the trigger. The round fires. As the round passes the gas port, most of the gas is vented through the gas tube and begins the process of sending the bolt to the rear. When that process starts, the bolt unlocks. The empty brass is then extracted from the chamber and ejected from the firearm. As the bolt moves to the rear, it cocks the hammer. At this point, the shooter may continue to hold the trigger to the rear or release some of the rearward pressure and allow the trigger to reset. As the spring behind the buffer pushes the bolt forward, a new round is stripped from the magazine. That new round is then forced into the chamber. As the bolt is fully closed, it locks into place and the cycle is ready to be repeated. And now for the FRT. With the bolt locked, round in the chamber, and safety off, the cycle of operation begins as the shooter squeezes the trigger. The round fires. As the round passes the gas port, most of that gas is vented through the gas tube and begins the process of sending the bolt to the rear. When that process starts, the bolt unlocks. The empty brass is then extracted from the chamber and ejected from the firearm. As the bolt moves to the rear, it cocks the hammer, which is the point in the cycle of operation where our FRT is different from a standard mil-spec trigger. In our patented design, as the bolt cocks the hammer forces a reset on the trigger, which pushes the shooter's finger forward. Simultaneously, as the trigger is forced into a reset, the locking bar pivots into position, mechanically locking the trigger, preventing it from functioning again until the cycle of operation is complete. As the spring behind the buffer pushes the bolt forward, a new round is stripped from the magazine. That new round is then forced into the chamber. As the bolt closes and locks into place, that locking bar disengages, which allows for the cycle to be repeated.
Okay. So basically, it's like a bump stock. Basically, it's like a bump stock built into a trigger. So it uses part of the mechanism of the reset to force the trigger forward. And if you continuously press it back, then you'll pull the trigger again by the operation of your pulling the trigger back. So yeah, that could be viewed as a automated trigger, right? Because yeah, I mean, it gets into very technical distinctions, but the ATF's view on this is probably at least plausible without going into the real weeds of regulation. But you know, it could be. Yeah. And Stephanie also said the exact same thing. It works essentially the same to a bump stock. Yeah. So that's what it looked like to me. It basically is internally the same. So with the bump stock ban in place, I'm not even sure without the bump stock ban in place, because this is internal to the firearm, which actually could make a legal distinction too. So it's because it's like, how much practical difference is that between changing the trigger this way and just changing the sear? So it's comparable. So the ATF might be plausible in this one. It's another pull the trigger. Yeah. Kinda. Sort of. So yeah, it depends on the exact nature of the regulations. So that's a very, very technical thing. So I don't know. Without getting really, really deep into the weeds of ATF regulation and getting really, really deep into how these things are defined, but it looks very similar to a bump stock. So yeah, it might very well be automatic within some legal sense because of the nature of the operation. It's not like a bump stock. It's basically an auto sear. It's a little bit more like a bump stock, but take your pick. Let's take a look at some of your super chats. Dobie said, appreciate the commentary. How to call into the attorneys. We discussed that. Dr. Spoon gave me $10. Says, if Kyle Rittenhouse does get convicted, goes to prison, could he pull a freeway Rick Ross like appeal? I think he has potentially very valid grounds for appeal, not the least of which is incompetent counsel. Laura X says, you're great. I wish it was you, Viva, Legal Mindset, and Drex on the Rakita Rittenhouse coverage. Well, thank you. $10 from TW says, check out Zach Stacy. What is Zach Stacy? Let's take a quick look and see if that's worthy of discussion. Our sort of potpourri stream. Who or what is a Zach Stacy? Accused of violently harming an ex-girlfriend, NFL star. Well, what else is new, to be quite honest? There's quite a lot of NFL players with some fairly scary history of abuse and things like that. So the fact that there's another NFL player who's being accused of, being physically violent to his ex-girlfriend is not surprising. There's people in the NFL with some pretty scary histories when it comes to violence issues, domestic violence issues, and other criminal issues. So, the fact that this is happening is in no way surprising. But what will happen as a result, who knows? The fact that the NFL has problems with this, and the fact the NFL does so much to suppress it and sweep it under the rug is pretty depressing. Reformed Mr. Sin said, Juror 54 is going to show up tomorrow, educate the 11 about how they came a lawyer overnight and how they're wrong. Great. Is there a car 54? Where are you? Joke in here somewhere because it's Juror 54. Juror 54, where are you? I don't know. There's got to be something better than that. Newfie gave 206 to say $5 to say 206 of you haven't hit the like button yet. Just takes a second. You should definitely hit it. $1 from Paul Strosky, and $4.99 says from Jacob says, if there's a mistrial, no prejudice, and then retrial, does Kyle take the stand? I have no idea. Not surprising, the NFL is a nonprofit, aren't they? Yes, they are technically a nonprofit. The NFL is a nonprofit under 501(b)(6). They have their own special section. They have their own special section in the IRS code for national. So the NRS, the NFL is in fact a nonprofit. Well, I don't know if calling it a nonprofit entity is exactly correct, but they're a tax exempt entity because Congress. Yeah. What else can I answer? What other questions do you have about law before I hand up the stream, or other things that are legally interesting? That's a nonprofit. I mean, not necessarily, because, nonprofit, you're typically thinking of a 501(b)(3) or 501(b)(2). It's just that they're tax exempt, so whether they're nonprofit or not doesn't matter. But maybe, I don't know. It makes a distinction without a difference. I'm tired. Cody Sams, with respect to the pardon or commutation issue, said, yes, it's been done before. The governor can decline to pardon a recommendation and can pardon against the advice of the board. Well, apparently that's true, at least in Oklahoma, so I'll take your word for it. That's not necessarily true in all states, but okay. You can earn a doctorate in prison. You can't earn one while dead. I think that's a good distinction. I'm not sure there's any value to me. What's the point of earning a doctorate? I mean, I don't get it. All right, so those are all the questions the bot caught. I think the bot crashed, Matt. I think the bot crashed. I'll try to go through it manually. Okay, the jump kick man. There was a member. Someone became a member 7 months ago. Peter, thank you very much. Does jury leaving early indicate anything about the chances of a hung jury? Yes, I think it indicates the chances are high. I would expect a hung jury in the near future. So now we've got the identity of jump kick man. So let's take a look at this story together. That somehow someone has identified jump kick man, even though all the powers of the state could not identify jump kick man. Now someone has identified jump kick man. It's like, well, that's just amazing, right? It's like, how did that happen? Maurice Freeland is jump kick man, apparently, so it is suggested. The man known as Jump Kick Man during the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse is 39-year-old Maurice Freeland. A video played at trial appears to show Freeland running at Rittenhouse. Prosecutors argued during the trial the man who confronted Rittenhouse were trying to stop an active shooter. Freeland apparently had approached the prosecutors to testify in exchange for immunity for other charges, but they rejected the offer, which is directly contrary to what Binger said in open court. Binger said that they didn't know who it was, so they have a thing where they lied to the court. Freeland has a lengthy criminal history, including charges of battery, disorderly conduct, and other offenses. And so if they knew the identity of this person, that's yet another grounds for mistrial. So I'd be filing a motion. I'd be filing another motion for mistrial with prejudice based on this. Make them argue it, Do another one based on that. This is depressing. If they openly lied in court in that blazing fashion, that's really depressing. And this guy Laird got arrested for assaulting his significant other. Well, there's a massive surprise. Not, it's like it all's how horrible. Well, I think that gives us to the end of the chat for today. I hope you've enjoyed this stream. It hasn't been all Kyle Rittenhouse all the time, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. I think we're looking at some version of a hung jury, and then it's up to the judge whether or not it's going to be with prejudice, without. I would be, if it's a hung jury, I'd be amazed if the judge dismisses it with prejudice, tomorrow. I would think it's much more likely that the judge dismisses the jury and keeps the case open for further motion practice, and then just quietly dismisses it without prejudice, on a Friday, 2 weeks from now or something. So that's all the good things. I'm gonna sign off. If you've been enjoying the stream despite my tiredness, please remember to give it a like. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you have subscribed already, check to make sure that you're subscribed. Because I don't know, maybe they've unsubscribed you in the last 5 minutes. And did you know for 99 cents, you too can become an uncivilian? That's true. If you hit the join button, and then you too can become an uncivilian, get a cool little icon by your name, and look down on the people who don't have icons because they're not as cool as you. I'm going to sign off for now. Until later, my friends, I hope all is well. Cheers and goodbye.